Welcome to Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. I'm a board-certified music therapist, author, and expert on how to use music to relieve stress fast. This podcast is sponsored by McConnell Music Therapy Services, Inc., where they believe in the power of music to transform people and communities. Based in Northern California, their board-certified music therapists support people of all ages and abilities within hospitals, schools, corporations, and communities using music experience to connect, express, and de-stress. Visit them at mcconnellmts.com or their Facebook page, McConnell Music Therapy. This episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold is also sponsored by Dr. Nisi, trainer and certifier of master and executive coaches, because she believes every person, every relationship, every business, and your finances should be extraordinary. Find out more about Dr. Nisi Moore and the Life Coaching Institute at www.drneesie.com. That's DRNEECIE.com. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. It's so great to be with you, and I'm so glad you're here. Today, I'm interviewing an absolutely otherworldly band called 2002. This award-winning band has placed 12 albums on the Billboard charts over their 29-year career. Their ever-evolving sound has encompassed a wide range of genres, from wistful ambient soundscapes all the way to light progressive rock. Basically, it's like a blend of musical styles, and it's given them really their own signature sound that sets them apart from other recording artists. Over the years, Randy and Pamela have been steadily increasing the use of their vocals, percussion, infusing elements of pop and folk, progressive rock into their ambient and kind of neoclassical roots. Also, during that time, their daughter, Sarah, has been taking on an increasing role in the group, and that synergy brings their signature sound to something like, it's really something fresh and new. And it's by a band that really believes in the following a musical adventure wherever it leads, ever onward. So sit back, relax, and really enjoy this really it's such a good conversation. I might be biased, but there was so much heart and so much love between Randy and Pamela and I, and just enjoy a conversation with just an amazing husband and wife that really make amazing music together. And I'll see you on the other side. All right, Pamela and Randy Kopis, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you with me today.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Great to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. Super excited to share your story with our listeners here. And, you know, our listeners are kind of used to hearing a little bit of a bio. Like I read the bio, in advance, but you know how that is. That's like the 30,000, foot view. But kind of always curious about kind of the hero's journey and where it began. And so the first question I like to ask artists is, where did you meet music?
Oh.
Each one of us?
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like the play-by-play, but like, just what's that like first sense of, oh, it was this person in my family introduced it to me, or it was like, how did you meet music? Like my earliest memory is singing a solo in kindergarten called I Want a Harmonica for Hanukkah.
Oh, wow.
Right. And my mom was the director of religious education at the Catholic parish. So it was the big joke in town.
Oh, no, she was.
Little Timmy is singing about a harmonica for Hanukkah. Right. And
Did you get one?
No, of course not. Because, that would be like,
Well, they didn't celebrate Hanukkah, did they?
No, not so much. So like, kind of, how did you first, where did you meet music? And, Pamela, let's start with you.
Well, I was 8, and the typical elementary school kid, they said pick an instrument, and my sister was playing piano, and it didn't interest me. She was playing clarinet, it didn't interest me, and violin, and I picked up the flute, and we were immediate soulmates, and it's my instrument.
Still?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. All right.
Yeah. Well, you have more now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I play harp now, too. And
but still,
I've played for quite a few years.
Well,
I love my flute, but there's this thing called polyphony.
Yeah, being able to play more than one note. You're really cool.
Yeah, so I picked up harp so I could do more than one note at a time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I remember taking clarinet in university and seeing the sheet music. And as a guitarist, and before being a guitarist, I was a pianist. Like, it was the easiest sheet music I'd ever seen in my life. Right? I was like, one note at a time.
Yeah.
One note at a time. That's all you have to figure out. How hard could that be?
Well, now
and then it was like, well, it's a lot of notes pretty quickly, but
no, I never
polyphony.
learned to read
Oh,
though.
tell him this story. This is
And
really
I
funny.
didn't know. My mom didn't know that you're supposed to send your kid to private lessons and they're in the band at school. She didn't know. She thought the band director was teaching me, and he wasn't. I was listening to the other people play and going, oh, okay, that's how it goes. Oh, and we're looking at this piece of paper with those black dots on it. All right. And it never occurred to me. And even in high school, I made it to first chair flute, not knowing how to read sheet music. No. And then I went back in my 30s, I think it was, and tried to learn. And man, that's hard.
It is hard.
It is hard. Yeah. Well, it's kind of an abstraction, it's a weird thing, and the visual cortex is slower than the auditory cortex anyway in the brain. So to try to have the music enter in through the eyeballs, it's not really how it's been done for
that's why
millennia.
I don't do it at all. I could if I wanted to, but I don't want to, because I don't. But from that exact correlation that you just made, I can't make the speed of my eyeballs match the speed of my hearing. So.
Amen. Yeah, no, I get that 100%. And that was me. Same thing. I was self-taught, and so then it was like, reproduce these dots on a page. And it was just like, you're making this visceral body experience into this cerebral experience. And you're kind of polluting the waters, in my humble opinion. So it's like the 16th way we've already vibed together. For those of you listening, we were already chatting away for like 20 minutes before I finally hit record. So just another way that we're brothers and sisters here. So Randy, how about you? Where did you meet music?
Alice Martin.
I think that I first met music when I was about 3 years old. I had tremendous hearing difficulties when I was born, and for the first 2 or 3 years of my life, they were clogged all the time, and I could barely hear. The only thing I could really hear, I couldn't hear music almost at all, except for rumbling, and I could only hear my mother when she would speak to me, but she had to speak softly right in my ear.
Whoa.
And then when I went into the hospital finally, and they took all the plumbing out and everything, and then I could hear. And my mother used to have this little this convertible, this car back in the 60s. She used to drive, around and it had speakers in the back. It was one of the first ones that had that. And she would play this Mantovani, like the string music and stuff, like orchestra music. And it was like my eyes were up, when I heard that. It was like hearing music for the first time, but I was already like aware, and I was already, I wasn't an infant anymore. And I never did get over that. I still can hear it to this day. I still can hear all that music, and I never did get over that. I guess I had to do it with my life. So
that's amazing. So you really had this like freshness.
I did.
This, like, like this fresh.
And then Pam mentioned something that I should mention also. I had a mentor when I was in second grade until I was maybe into fifth or sixth grade.
Okay.
Music teacher at our little elementary school that I went to. Her name was Alice Martin.
Okay.
And Mrs. Martin was an amazing teacher. She taught music in a very different way. She didn't sit children down and try to teach them notes or anything like that. She did do re mi stuff, She would we would throw balls back and forth and sing notes to each other, and everyone would throw one to someone different in the class and sing different notes. It was a remarkable way to teach. Someday I'm going to start a school for children that teaches that way that she taught.
I love it.
But in any event, she took a liking to me, and she took me to on weekends. My parents let her do this. They would, oh yeah, a teacher wants to take him to see a opera or a symphony or a whatever, and so they would let her take me, or The Sound of Music at the theater, or where it was playing, wherever it was, and they let her do this. So she mentored me through music. She taught me major and minor. She taught me diminished chords and things.
By what they sounded like.
And by what they sounded like, and what they did. And then she taught, and at the end, before she was not my teacher anymore, I got outgrew it or whatever. At the end, she was teaching me what different chords did and what they did to your soul, what they did to your different keys, like the key of B major makes a completely different emotional thing happen to humans than the key of A minor.
Isn't that interesting?
So I started getting into that whole thing, the 22 keys, and how how they all do different things, and you can use those to work and to even to bring us to nature and to even heal.
Nice. That's awesome. We need more Alice Morton. Is that her name?
Alice Martin.
Yeah.
Alice Martin. We need more Alice Martins in the world.
We do.
All right. Now, you guys aren't just bandmates, but you're husband and wife. So how'd you meet each other?
1979.
Yep.
It was 1979.
1979.
At high school.
1879.
I just moved to Texas from Kentucky, didn't know anybody.
No, she
And
didn't.
we met in the hallway of the theater building.
We did.
He's about a year and a half older than me, so he was an upperclassman.
I was
Oh,
I was a senior by then. Yeah, I was a senior
stud.
at that time. Yes,
Okay. That's a big deal.
senior. When she met me, I was wearing a pair of pink
leotard.
leotards. Yeah, I did jazz pants, dancing pants. We were in some dance
Can't really
company
take someone
routine at the
serious
theater.
like that.
And I was. It's like this, and I met her, and it was like, I was like, once I said, "Hey, you." Wasn't that it? I was like, "Hey, you."
Works
And
every
then-
time.
Yeah, and then she turned around and she walked back, and I thought I was going to die. I met my future love of my life. I knew it at that moment, and it was like, but you're in pink jazz pants, guy. I mean, this is really okay. Where do we go from here? But
No, but that's the test, right?
That
That's
is
like that's the litmus test right
Test
then and there. Like if she could hang with the pink, then we're good, right? When I met my wife, I was in a crazy industrial heavy metal band, and I wore liquid latex on stage. And and we met over email. So the first picture I sent her was a picture of me on stage. And because I wanted to just right away know, like, buyer beware. I want you
Right.
to know what you're getting yourself into, like no surprise. And if she could
I'm
hang, you could hang with that, then we're good. So she could obviously hang with the pink leotard. So the rest is history, as they say.
It's funny.
So then you meet each other, and you were both playing music in your own journey at that point. And did you immediately start writing music or playing music together, or were you just kind of like, doing your own things? Like, when did it be like, hey, let's do our own thing? Was it immediate, or was there some time?
About 8 years later, actually.
No kidding.
I moved away and went to college.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was in a rock band, and they were doing
I'd
touring,
done
and you moved to Austin
Different
and New
things.
York
I'd lived in
and
New York
Utah
City for a while, and
yeah.
Got it.
places, and
Yeah. But I
Okay.
have letters with postmarks from all over the country.
yeah, we did.
Paper
Wherever we
letters.
went, we would keep in contact with each other, and
Cool.
No mail, of course.
but we weren't even
Yeah.
even when we were married. At the time we were married, we were still in different groups. I was still a lead singer in a rock group,
Okay.
and he was in a rock group also, playing keyboards and
Industrial rock.
industrial rock group. Yeah, like you said.
You're down with the liquid latex. Yep.
I was good with
Yeah,
it.
See that? You got it. You get it. She gets me.
But they did. Yeah, but we were still in those. And then when those things, as they always do, sort of fell apart, and everyone, goes different directions, we were left with each other. And
Well, I moved back to Texas.
yeah,
Yeah. And a friend of ours was doing guided meditations. It was in the late 80s, I guess. Suzanne, remember?
early 90s.
And
yeah.
she said, "Hey, come play flute at my guided meditation." I'm like, "What? You want me to just like play flute and and she's like, "Yeah, just play flute." I'm like,
Just a
"Oh,
flute.
okay." And so I brought the flute, and I kind of just noodled around while she did her thing. Afterwards, all these people came up to us and said, "We've got to have that music. Where can we get
No
that music?"
kidding.
Randy and I are looking at each other going, "Well, we don't know."
We don't know. And
And
they're like, if you record that, I'll buy it.
We
And
want
everyone
that.
was
Stop
telling
it.
us that. So
Well, it
what
was-
did we do?
It was
We went and
Texas. It was the
recorded
desert. We brought water.
Right, exactly. Yeah. No question about that.
Texas was country music back then. It was
Oh,
country
it
or
was-
gospel, or it didn't exist.
Sure.
No one knew what the heck this was. What is this?
Well,
You
but
know?
it did, but the kind of music that we did, which I guess you would call mindful, or in those days it was new age,
Yep.
and and in those days we did have, even here in Texas, really all over the country, but even here we had all of these little shops that
Right.
were all over that would sell. Some of them would be
Incense.
sell incense and crystals
Yes.
and
Yes.
and things like that. And some of them were a little more esoteric. Maybe they're into Wiccan stuff, you know.
Yep. Yep.
And then somebody else might be, but it was all sort of that thing. And they all loved to sell music there. This was back when there was no streaming or anything, and we
Sure.
still sold
No
records. We
internet.
still sold
So
CDs
you'd bring them a case of your CDs and
or
Or
cassettes.
handmade
or
cassettes.
cassettes.
That even we would
Yeah.
bring them in and on consignment or whatever,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that's how we got started as 2002, was just in
Amazing.
little shops selling our little, and they would play them in the shop and people
Sure.
would come in and hear it and then they would buy it.
Yep. Yep. It's like an indie record store,
It was.
Yeah.
but it's so great because so there's a store here in Orange County, the Dragon and the Rose, where I take my daughter to buy her incense, to buy her crystals, all of the parts of her own practice, her spiritual practice, her textbooks for Wicca, and they have CDs there, and it's really chill music, and I can totally see that that's playing, and I can imagine, people come in, and, that's really nice. What is that? Oh, it's this. Oh, I'll grab that.
Right.
And that was how it started. But that's not really how it started. It started at this guided meditation, which is so cool because you didn't even know.
No.
You had no idea. And they just kind of people literally said, we'll pay you.
Yeah, we were like,
okay,
We
I'll
were
let you.
We were,
well, we were
at
very
that
young,
point we were out of our respective rock groups at that,
And
and we were
poor.
and we were poor and we didn't have much.
Sure.
You know what? Let's, and we also,
Mhm.
in addition to that, we sold our music at art shows,
show-
art fairs.
art
Ah,
and craft fairs.
Yeah.
The Peachtree Festival or it's Apple Festival time in Texas, and okay.
We
Love
made
it.
we made a lot I have to admit, we made a lot of money doing that when we were
Yeah.
doing it. More than we ever thought. I mean, not a huge amount by today's,
Sure.
but for us,
Yeah.
just starting out with it, it was incredible. I mean, it would pay our bills, and we would stand there at these shows with our speakers, and they'd be playing music, and people would walk by,
And go, what is that?
and 1 out of 10
Yeah.
of them would stop and look and go, because they
Yeah.
hadn't heard anything like that. We're in Texas, remember? It's like
Yes.
it's not a George Strait,
Sure.
Exactly.
and so, but there were, and the more of them we went to, we found there was always a percentage of people that were interested in our kind of music.
Love it.
And then I guess at some point we started to take it national, right?
Oh yeah, we began getting calls and radio play and all kinds of stuff internationally, really.
And distributors.
And distributors picked it up, and we were just shocked. And then in '96, I believe it was,
Mhm.
we got I guess it was a letter from a company called Real Music in Sausalito, California. And they said, hey, we want to fly you out here and, maybe talk about a record. You were like, oh, yeah, one of those here, put it in the file. Never answered.
No, you didn't.
About 3 months later, plane tickets came in a FedEx package. And we're like,
Right.
oh my goodness, that was real.
Well, they told us, yeah. He
It's
said,
just
we really want to talk to you about this. And so it was like,
yeah,
okay.
and
So
they flew us out there.
they flew us out there, and
Mhm.
they talked us into it.
Yep.
And so we signed with Real Music, and we finished our contract with them.
Yeah.
We did
Mhm.
6 or 7 records.
We
with
did
them,
6
right?
albums for them.
Yeah.
They picked up 2 that we did prior to them and re-released them with
Okay.
new artwork.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we had that, and then we went our separate way for a while, and now we've come back, and now Michael and Real Music has
Mhm.
become
Mindstream.
Mindstream,
Yeah.
and and here we are again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And
full circle.
you've been recording you're incredibly consistent in your recording through the years. There's as I look back over your discography, it's like bang, every 1, 2, or 3 years there is a new record coming out, and it's an unbelievably lush, fully produced soundscape of just eargasm, just amazing music. It wasn't like we just pulled this together in 30 minutes like garage rock, jam. Did you, throughout your journey, have you had a internal, we're going to produce music so often? Just talk to me about how did you just stay that creative and that productive along the way? You had a child along the way, and was it a part of your contract? Like, we need to do this. We need to release so often, or did you just find yourselves always recording, or does it come out in fits and spurts? Or tell me a little bit about how all of this incredible body of music just came to be.
Well, it's just, I mean, for us, it's just what we do. It's the normal thing. Get up, work on music. It's not, it would be like not brushing your teeth one day to not
Right.
go out into the
Love
studio
it.
and work on music. It's just part of, I can't imagine. And someone once said to us, when you're ready to retire, we'll buy your whole catalog. And we're like, retire? Why would we want to ever stop? Why? Why?
I mean, I
Retire
can't
understand
even
that.
imagine
living?
retiring. I mean, unless I'm dead, but
Yeah.
but other than that,
So we
I
just
can't
write it
even.
because it's what we do.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
get that. I
We
totally
did.
get that. In fact, when I became a music therapist, I became board certified in 2008, and I tell people I haven't worked a day since,
Hmm.
Oh,
because you don't work music, you play it.
That's
exactly.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And so retiring is retiring from work. But if you don't work, there's nothing to retire from. And I don't work, you know what I mean? Like this, that's how music occurs for me. Music's not work. That,
Right.
like, I'm going to trade some amount of effort and time for dollars. Like, I'm going to go do these things and it's going to be terrible and I'm going to get some money. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't occur that way. So I love hearing from you that it's a similar kind of, it's just a more like a being
Exactly.
than a
It is.
doing.
It's a thing. We're compelled to do it, and
Mhm.
especially 2002 music. It's 2002 is like its own entity almost. It. People ask us. You may even at some point ask us. What is it that inspire? How do you make the decision of which way to go with a new record or what?
Right.
We
We
don't.
don't. We do
It
not.
decides.
That's one thing that
Yeah.
we figured out that we can't do. The
Mm,
music has to say what, and therefore it's always fresh for us. That's why we never get tired of it because we never know what it's going to do, and it's just as interesting and new to us as it is to to the audience.
I love it. I love the idea. I like to tell people that I'm an instrument, but like, I play instruments, but I'm just an instrument. Like, I'm not the author.
Mhm.
I'm in the instrument. The music is part of the everything. It's this unending source.
Right.
And if my little ego can get out of the way, it can flow through me. And I ask my guitars, what do you want to say today? Which guitar wants to be, do you want to take the lead first? Do you want to play this section? Because there's kind of like a framework for my own music, and I let it tell me what needs to come out first, and I follow it.
Mhm.
And I genuinely, in those, and you can appreciate this, in those moments of like flow, I would almost not say by Tim Ringgold. I would say like transcribed by Tim Ringgold,
Right.
or
Mm. Mhm.
brought forth, converted, translated. There's some other word, but I'm not the source. It's just flowing through me.
Vangelis used to say that he was the conduit
That's it.
for the musical energy that came from outside of him, and he was just a conduit that made it that put it down.
100%.
And we always used to liken ourselves to like basically lab technicians. The music says what it wants to do, and we're just here in lab coats writing it all down, But it's not quite that uninvolved, but still, it's the idea is there,
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you began as 2 and now you're 3.
That's right.
So tell me about was there a band meeting? Like, did she have to audition? Tell me a little bit, just joking, all joking aside, tell me about how your daughter, Sarah, came to become such an integral part of 2002.
Well, it's kind of the same thing with her. She can't imagine music not being part of her everyday life.
Mm.
And I think she was about 3 when we noticed she would start singing a song,
Mm-hmm.
probably from a Disney movie or something like that, and it was always right on key. We're
Perfect.
thinking, how does this 3-year-old do that?
Wow.
And by the time she was 5, she actually sang some of the backing vocals on Yeshua, a song of ours. We didn't release it until many years later, but the song eventually came out, but she was only 5.
Wow.
And by the time she was 8, she was contributing melody lines and
She was
stuff.
already
Yeah.
contributing to the group, and Sarah's a super musician, though. Sarah's one of those people. She does have perfect pitch, and which helps a lot. because that's a home run, as far as
Yes.
getting to where you want to go musically.
Wow.
And she I'll never forget when I came. She was what, 3, and I came in there one day, and I was listening to some Disney movie that was playing in there, and I thought, wow, that sounds different than Ariel, and I walked in there, and she's standing there, and she's got her hand up in the air, and I mean, she's acting the whole thing out. She's only 3, and it's absolutely spot on, and I'm just like, this is going to be a wild ride.
But she's also not just a singer. She's a gifted pianist. She plays violin. She plays harp. Well, she's been playing harp since she was 8 years old. Uh,
Wow.
what else does she play? Oh, baritone ukulele. And she picks. She doesn't just strum it. She
No,
picks.
she can
No
pick.
kidding.
She can
Yeah,
pick she's
yeah,
amazing. She
hmm
writes songs,
yeah. She's writing her own music.
and she contributes to our group. And the thing is, we've been doing this a long time, and 30 years as just 2002,
Wow.
and or almost. And she's coming in like this latest record we did. She's coming in at 17. She's contributing like someone who's been doing it for 30 years with us. You know, and that's really rewarding. For to come in, and she's like, no, I think that we're talking about a violin line and how it ought to maybe swoop down to here instead of go up there. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And it's
Oh,
fortunately we don't have too much ego situation
no,
here. Or
there's not any, but it's
you
great
know,
because we'll have a melody line. We'll say, "Hey, Sarah, we need some harmonies on this," and she's like, "Okay," and we're like, "Well, don't you want to work it out first?" No, just turn the mic on, hit go,
Wow.
and she'll lay down, stacks of harmony vocals.
Wow.
then there was the piano part that I wrote that I couldn't play. I wrote it, I composed it, but I wasn't a good enough piano player to actually play it. And so I showed it to her, and of course she sits right down like Mozart and just plays it, and I'm like, oh, this is terrible. Get off the stage, Randy. But anyway, we're so just fortunate to have her, and her abilities really are just way way beyond her years, and
Wow.
and and it's brought such a huge new dynamic to our group.
Mm,
I
that's
think.
fantastic. It's like a fresh, like a new frame, for a painting really well already, which is your own band.
Right. Well,
Really
we have our
cool.
sound, and
Yes.
we work within. It's a big sound, and it's very complex. There's a lot of it, but we usually work within the boundaries of that sound because that's where the music comes from. That's those different instruments and things. We've had some of them throughout our career.
Mm,
Um, but it's just that's our sound. That's
yeah.
what.
Yeah. And sounds like she's kind of fluent in that, which would make sense,
She,
since she grew up in it and grew up around it. So, tell me, as we said a little bit about the power of music for people who are going through, stressful times and tough times, share with me a couple of postcards from the front, some letters or stories where you've heard back from your listeners about the role music's played for them, not just in, for entertainment purposes, but really for, really helping them through a tough time.
oh,
Well,
so
those
many,
those are daily, and they might be in the form of a YouTube
so
comment. There
many.
was one yesterday. She said, "I visit my husband's grave every day. I play this song,
Yeah,
and thank you for the
it
healing."
happens
And I
all the
guess
time.
it happens all the time. Paper letters,
We've
nowadays
had we've
emails.
had one situation where a lady was disconnected from her life support while they played our music in
Hmm.
the background, and a lot of people can think, oh, that's kind of that kind of
No,
it
the
doesn't,
daughter says now
but
she
we
plays
didn't.
that song, and it reminds her of her mother.
Oh, see, and
Yeah.
it was such an honor to be able to have, to be able to create something that does that for people's lives.
I think
Yes.
the first time was in '92 when we released our first album, Wings. And we got a phone call from a reverend in Galveston, and he said, "I need to buy that CD. I need to get 10 copies." And we're like, "Well, okay." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm getting one. It's a Christmas gift to me from my son." And I thought, "Oh, that's nice." I said, "Well, does your son know you're buying your own Christmas gift from him?" And he said, "Well, my son died in it was a military airplane that went down in a training incident. All the children, well, they're young adults, obviously, died." And he said, "But I heard your song on the radio." And he said, "And my son was talking to me through it and telling me that everything was okay."
Yeah.
Wow.
And
That's beautiful.
he actually drove all the way from Galveston to meet us, picked up copies for all the parents that lost their kids on that plane.
Such a nice man.
Yeah,
Wow.
Reverend Brown and
Reverend Wilbert T. Brown,
yeah.
wasn't it?
And
Yeah.
but he said, what did he say? Peace and hope is the order of the day
Yeah.
because of that song.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
to be honest with you, that's a great deal of what motivates us to continue on with 2002 music has to do with things like that.
Yeah. I find great comfort in being in those spaces, moments like that.
Mhm.
Enya was playing when my dad passed away in 97, and it was like having the sound of angels in the room with him. And I thought, if I could be the soundtrack of someone's transformation from life to afterlife, that would be the highest use of my gifts as a musician. And I didn't know of a structure to do it at the time, but just the idea of that it just seemed for me like that God wanted me to be doing that. He had enough other guys that can go out on stage in front of a crowd and they can celebrate there, but not everybody wants to be in the tough spaces, and I'm just running into those tough spaces. So I really acknowledge you that you're continuing mindfully to choose to continue to create that music, because as an extension of that, what you're doing is you're ministering through music, you're healing through music to people you haven't met yet.
Right.
And I really that's huge. And that's why we're talking today, because there's a subset of us who write music who know that the music that we're writing it for a reason that's deeper than just a sold out concert. So,
and especially when you see it work,
yeah,
you're compelled to do it. It's irresistible when you know that you can make a difference. When
yes,
you know that your music can help and heal and do good in the world. You can't. It's not like maybe I'll do that if I get bored. You can't
right.
be that way about it. It's like, I've got to do this. Now you have this reason, I guess, that's bigger than you.
Yes.
That you have to go and fulfill. And I guess that's what it is. But yeah, it's an honor. It's just an honor to be able to create music that does that, for anyone.
And speaking of creating music, you guys are on the tail end of creating a new album. Is it done? Is it
just finished? We got it mastered last couple of weeks ago, I guess.
Man.
Oh, if we thought it would take us 3.5 months to make, it took us 7 months to make. It took us exactly twice as long.
Well, the pandemic, and then we
Oh,
had,
the pandemic.
the freeze that hit Texas and shut us down
right?
and
It did.
damaged
Holy
a lot of our
cow.
equipment and
Damaged our equipment,
Yeah.
damaged our console, so
Yeah.
we were
Wow.
stuck, and it was just really hard getting our string players. We have string players that are playing on this record, and just to get them to be able to come out and record was like, with pandemic, and
Sure.
everyone
A lot more complicated.
Yeah, but it was getting better finally by the time they did, but where we live, we were sort of shut down twice.
Wow.
It was shut down and then it was let back up, but then it got bad again, so they had to shut it all back down, and that really made it hard.
But it's done.
But it
It's
is
done. Does it have a name?
It's like, I can't
Hummingbird.
believe.
Hummingbird.
Hummingbird.
Oh, and so when I go to your website, the image, there's this beautiful hummingbird above the infinity symbol. It's like wrapped into it. It's gorgeous. Was that symbol, was that graphic created kind of in conjunction with the album?
That's right.
Awesome.
Right.
It's beautiful.
The little hummingbird's wings fly, in a figure 8, like an infinity symbol.
That's right.
Right.
I was going to ask you guys, what's the connection? There's the connection.
Oh, and all the legends they're in the Americas exclusively, right? These little birds, but in all of the cultures, and all of the Native American cultures, and just everywhere you look in folklore, that little bird brings light, healing, water,
fire,
purity, purifying. I mean, every good thing that happens in the world on a grand scale, that little bird is the harbinger of. And we got a letter from a fan.
Mm-hmm. His name was Rick Tennant.
Rick, and what did Rick say?
He said he wrote I love getting handwritten notes still. I guess I'm old. And he said, your music brings me hope and inspiration every day, just like the little hummingbirds and legends. And we were like, what? And so we kind of dove into, the folklore behind it. And it was all just so perfect.
It was.
Yeah.
It was
nice. Nice. And
The
so,
album is very pastoral. It's
okay.
very
Instrumental.
there's a lot of birds and things. It's about nature. It's a celebration of nature.
Love it.
And during the pandemic, a lot of people, including myself, including us, we took refuge and solace in nature as being, the one thing that's everything else is moving up and down in the world and going crazy, but this is still right on,
Yes.
and getting out and connecting with it and realizing that humankind may have a problem that they're having to deal with, and it may be falling apart in many places, but nature is exactly like it was yesterday and the day before. The birds are still out there chasing each other around. The squirrels are still getting in trouble. It's just everything is still, the trees are still growing,
Yes.
life is still happening and still moving on. And I think that there's a healing message in that. We're part of nature.
Yep.
And I think that we can be a part of that nature, that we can heal just like nature can. I think that we're resilient enough to be able to go through that healing after we've been through what we have.
Absolutely. And we're made up of all the same stuff. So we have that same potential. Well, Randy and Pamela, it has just been such a treat to spend the time with you today. Really, really, it's been my honor and my joy. Thank you so much for joining us on the pod.
Thank you. It was too
It was
short.
an honor to meet you.
Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. I've got a couple of resources for you, which you can find in the show notes or you can listen to right here. So check it out. If you enjoy the sound of my voice and you enjoy the sound of my guitar, imagine them put together. Go to sonicrecovery.com and take your very own relaxation vacation, where I take you out of the stress of the present moment and back in time to a time when you felt happy, healthy, safe, and sober, and then walk you through that memory so you can bring back those feelings into the challenges you're facing today. So go check that out. It's at sonicrecovery.com. If you're a healthcare worker in recovery, check out the Music in Recovery Self-Care Guide for healthcare professionals that I created just for you. That's at hcp.sonicrecovery.com. And if you're a healthcare worker and you'd like more information about how to help your patients use music, you can check out the Music Medicine Guide that I created just for you at musicmedicineguide.com. Lastly, if you enjoyed the pod and you haven't done it yet, would you just take a minute to rate and review it? It really only takes about 60 seconds, believe it or not, and it would go a long way to help us make more people know just how good this pod is, particularly for healthcare workers and their stress. Thanks again. See you next time.